How you doing today?
Good afternoon. I'm doing fabulous.
I know, and I want to hear all about these wonderful changes that you've made. And folk, if you're joining us online, this is trauma survivors walking each other home. And what we talk about every Monday is when we go through life changes, those of us that have had trauma, how can we help each other with that? How can we not pretend it's not happening, because denial never answered anybody's problem, made it worse, actually. But how can we help each other through challenging times, which are also times to grow, if I choose to let that happen? So, Denice, since she's been with us, has been making a major work change. And just in case you haven't been with us during this time, we're going to invite Denice to share with you what are some of the changes she's made and how has that been for her as a survivor of abuse. And before that, I just want to remind you guys that this is a very safe gathering. And if at any point you feel like maybe I'm talking about something that reminds you of something tough, or maybe Denice is talking about, oh my God, I had this tough choice to make, and that reminds you of tough choices. If you're not comfortable, you have all kinds of things to do to take care of yourself. One is, Denice, what you got there, girl? She's
Take a
got
drink
her
of water.
water. She's got hers. I got mine. We can also just plain old stand up and move around and get the lymphatic system going. We can take a break and walk away. If you got a cat or a dog, invite them over. And I'm going to let you know one more time, just the first time for this meeting, but we do this every meeting. The number to call if you want to talk with someone that will just listen, someone who's trained as a trauma survivor, to listen, to not judge, to just say, I'm glad you called. How can I help? And that number is 800 643 7462. And that 800 643 7462 is one of the many numbers you can call if you go to Warm Lines Trauma, Warm Lines, and just look up the number that's closest to you. So we want you to feel safe and comfortable. And please, because trauma is a tough thing to talk about. If either Denice or I starts feeling like, we'll say that out loud and let you know what we're doing to take care of ourselves. So, with that as an introduction, welcome to our regular Monday night program and our fourth anniversary of this. And Denice, what can you tell us about your life journey? If you're willing to, why why were things not quite as automatically easy for you as they can be for other kids, and how does that affect you at age 65 when you're doing your thing as an adult?
Um, could you say the question again?
Yeah, sweetie. Anything you want to tell us about, that you feel safe and open, that you can tell us about being a trauma survivor and how that affected you for much of your
Right.
life. And now that you're all grown up, as if we ever are. So the first thing is, how did you face trauma as a child and how did that affect you? And now as an adult, how are you working as a trauma survivor to make your own way in a loving way? So it's, where did you get started? How did that affect you? And now that you're doing some really courageous things to reclaim your life, how is being a trauma survivor helpful and maybe not so helpful?
Trauma in my childhood made me not have an opinion, not feel worthy, uh, probably a lot of shame also. And so the first way I got started, I got a job because my abuser was also my provider. So I kind of felt obligated, I guess, to succumb to maltreatment. And
Because did you have a choice?
no,
And that's a tough thing. We didn't have choices. Denice, back in the day when you were a kiddo, were there halfway houses or safe houses for kids?
no, it was a very taboo topic. My sister actually reported to a school psychiatrist or something like that. And they came to me and asked me, and I was like, nope, nothing going on here. And that was like a betrayal to my sister because I didn't back her up, which I had to get, claim that shame or whatever. And yeah, I did that, but I was protecting myself. I wasn't
Who else were you protecting, sweetie, besides yourself by not telling anything, not telling anything, keeping the secret?
right. The abuser, the whole
Hmm.
family, we were supposed to be quiet and
Hmm.
not mention it.
That's right. So I just want to say for those of you that are listening, if you're of a certain age, there were times when Denise and I wanted to run away. At least I did. And I had all these great plans about how I get on the bus and I just go south to a warmer place. But I knew in my heart that there wouldn't be a safe place for me because I never heard about places where kids could go. And how did I know that where I was going to go would be safe as a little girl? I mean, I was willing to risk it, but there just wasn't anything. And I'm not saying today it's easier at all. It's not, it's never easy to leave where you're born and raised. But sometimes there are places you can go now and say to
Right.
people, I've
And
been, yeah,
people, women, survivors are more apt to not be quiet about it. Like once I became an adult, I told other people that I was a incest survivor. I never really hid it. I was like, oh, I don't know. I guess I really wanted authentic connection. And
mhm.
so I told people. And so then they could feel safe to say what happened to them because
And did they?
everyone has trauma. I mean, some of it
Mhm,
might be different
mhm,
trauma, but it's trauma to that individual.
mhm.
Everybody has some trauma.
I know people that have been, they weren't the abused child in the family, but they had witnessed abuse, Janice, because they kept hearing another child being beaten or they kept hearing another child being screamed at. And that is, the research says that's just as strong. It's just as scary. It ignites the parts of our brain that get us really scared to
Right,
death. So you're right. I mean, you're right. I'm grateful that the children today feel like more open that they can say when they're abused, there is still with many people that don't talk. Don't you tell anybody, don't you trust anybody, and don't
right.
you have any feelings for yourself? So okay, so you
And
said,
there is
yeah.
still family reunification in these child abuse cases.
And
Their
what do you mean by
first,
that, sweetie? What's
their
that
first,
family?
yeah, that's the first avenue of our government supports in mental health and whatever, and this child abuse. And family reunification is not always the best thing.
And what is that? So somebody might not know if they were
So
told, well, it's time to do
if
family reunification.
if somebody, if Child Protective Services separated children from their family, the number one goal is to get them back to their family. So the family gets requirements that they have to meet, go to certain classes, pass certain tests, do certain things. Then they get back together.
And that's reunification. And what if in many of those cases the parents, the ones that are hurting children, are hurting people, and
Right,
they're not dealing with whatever their sadness is, and so it just becomes
right,
easier to have a drink or take some drugs or beat on a kid and tell the kid, if you tell anybody.
right. The
Yeah.
right support is just not there in our culture at this time, of healing.
Hmm. Yeah, what I would have wanted as a child was to not go back there because it was never safe there and it was never comfortable there being my
Right,
family of origin. But I would have loved to have been in a safe either nuclear family or even more than that, I would have been grateful to be in a community of other children who were like me, that had supports, that had counselors, that had
Right.
somebody to say, gee, Holly Elissa, I noticed you're really good at drawing. Would you be willing to go with me to this class? Because none of that happens very
Right.
often in a dysfunctional family. So what about you? What would your ideal, so you're talking about family reunification, which is still the legal way, and you
Right.
and I as survivors question that. What would you have wanted when you were a child that would have been healing for you, and that would not have been reunification?
Well, what I did have was faith.
Oh,
I went to Catholic schools from first grade. My first 3 years of Catholic school, we went to church every day, except for Saturday. And Holy Mary, Mother of God, she
pray
was
for us.
kind to children. And so I just kind of adopted her as a
Mm.
kind mother.
Oh, and I'm so glad that worked for you. I was raised with Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. And so I would fiercely pray to Jesus, please, please get me out of here. I can't take this anymore, especially what would happen in the night when the abuse was happening. And if you're listening, I'm not going to go into depth at all about the molestation that took place, but a lot of kids have it. A lot of kids experience it. And for me, going back there would not have been safe. So well, anyway, what I did was I prayed, please, Jesus, get me out of here. Please help me. And I kept praying and praying. Um, and I didn't get out of there. I had to stay there. So it didn't feel as safe for me. I'm really glad you had Mother Mary that could be there for you. It's
Holy
beautiful.
Mary. Also, I would go to my relatives in Alabama in the summer, sometimes for a month, sometimes for a couple months. Um, we went there when my father died when I was 4. My sister Debbie and I also went there. We stayed there for months until my mom recovered from her grief. And so my Aunt Martha there, she was a good mother.
Mm.
She was a good mother, a loving mother, a nurturer, and told us, well, really, I stayed with my Mimi. That's my mom's mom. She did not like children. Like she used to tell us when we visit that she gets these allergies on her
Oh,
arms because of us, because we make her so nervous.
oh,
So I never thought she liked kids, but Aunt Martha was a bike ride away. So I spent, as much time with my cousins and my aunt. And
and I
she was a good
remember
mother. And I
you.
had to face that every time when it was time to go home.
How did you
I
ever
did
do that?
I did not want to go home, and it really hurt my mom's feelings, but
Mhm.
I still said it. I don't know.
You were telling what you needed to say, and
Yeah,
you were with your aunt who could hear you. She
right.
knew you
Well,
cared
she
about
didn't want to hear anything. She was an abuse survivor herself in her marriage with my uncle. He was
Mm.
mean. And but she she was loving. She told us she loved us, but we couldn't really be talking about deep things. Just
Oh, I hear you.
she'd cook
But
our food, she made us feel safe, and yeah, she was awesome. So I
and she
did have that.
played. She helped you play. She would make you chocolate. What was it? Chocolate
Biscuits, right?
pancakes.
Oh, it was so good.
I was just remembering that, and I want to invite people that are listening. If you had a situation of trauma when you were a child and you really wanted to get away, and trust me, most children have this strong desire to get out of there. God, get me out of here. And in Denise's case, it's beautiful. She got to travel many states away. In my case, I lived during the polio epidemic. I think that was before your time, right?
Yes.
And I was a 4-year-old when the polio epidemic came around, and I was in first grade. And my mother was scared because we lived in a city of 18,000 people, which of course wasn't any big thing, but to her it was. And so she farmed each one of us out to relatives. And I got farmed out on my own to Aunt Janet and Uncle, what was his name? Anyway, his last name was Staley. I don't remember him very much because he wasn't around, but they weren't loving and caring. I didn't feel that from them. I didn't ever feel like comforted or soothed or hugged. But what I did feel was safe. They weren't going to hurt me. And
Right.
so here's the rest of the story. When it, just like you said, Denice, when it came time for school to start and it was time to go back to my hometown, my parents came to pick me up and they said, well, you ready to go home? And I said, no. And they said, are you kidding? I said, no, I want to stay. I want to live here. I want to live here. And then I could tell they were getting really angry at me. And I could tell that there was no choice. So people, rushed me out the door. But that was a summer of fear all over the country, just like with COVID. People were scared to death,
Right. Right.
couldn't go out in public. But I spent that whole summer picking blackberries, and when a hornet would sting me, I'd do the country thing of getting mud from the mud puddles and putting it on me and putting it on me, and that would take the pain away. My aunt was a real country woman, and she knew how to make everything. And I used to watch her make everything. And there was a cousin who was like a year older than me, and she and I could play. And so it was a whole lot better than being afraid.
Right.
And so, yeah, okay. So you had a tough time. You were 4 when your dad died?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And I found him, and it was probably a drug overdose. It was in my bed.
So trauma on trauma on trauma, Denise.
Right.
Trauma. And you were
And
able to,
even
yeah, go
before
ahead.
that, even before that, my mom says that my father was mean to her. Like he would come home drunk and beat her up. So even when I was a baby, they were married, I think, by a judge or justice of the peace or whatever. And then a year later, they got married again. So it was like some kind of weird shenanigans going on.
And in the
So
Catholic Church, honey, you get married.
right, right.
I hear you.
So
Oh,
it
so
was the
oh,
church was the second time. So I think might have been pregnant, or I don't know what the secret was, but it's not that important. It was just already not safe to be genuine or whatever. It was already not safe before my father died.
yep. And so it was already not safe. And you did have some moments like in the summer of going to a place where you could be happy, where you could play, where you could be a kid. And it wasn't 100%. There was anger and parents that were, adults that were hurting there too, but they didn't
Right,
hurt you. And that's
right.
such a change.
Well, actually, they did abuse me there because I wet the bed.
Oh, of course you
And
did. I mean, that's a
yeah,
natural thing for a kid.
right. Especially your dad just died. Hello, you're 4.
Right. Come on.
You might wet the
Yes.
bed, but
Yes.
they were really dead set against that. They didn't have those underwear that they have now for kids, good nights or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So they put me first, they told me that I was sleeping with an electric blanket. If I peed the bed, I would be electrocuted. So I woke up the next day, being the smart ass that I was, and I said, I peed the bed. I didn't get electrocuted. Ha 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 ha. So then they made me sleep in the bathtub.
Oh, oh no. Oh,
Yeah.
Denise, I'm sorry. I'm
Well,
sorry. Could you sleep?
I think so. I think I
Oh,
slept.
Okay, girl. So wherever we went in dysfunctional families, there's dysfunction. And what you're
Right,
talking about, what I'm talking about is there are gradations. Like when you could be away and there were good things going on in Alabama, you remember the good things.
right. I do. I have the good parts there. I knew of goodness. It wasn't only Holy Mary. Aunt Martha was goodness too, and
Mhm.
riding my bike was goodness or
Or
on the
the
way to
air
goodness.
on your face, you could feel the
Right.
air in your hair. I hear you. And for me, just as soon as I'd finished my chores, I could get outside and nobody cared where I was or what I was doing as long as I was back by dinner
Yeah.
time. And so
Yeah.
there was for every downside, there's an upside, even though the downside is really harsh. And for being a neglected child, we had freedom. We
Yeah,
could go
we
out
did.
and do things.
And, that's where resilience and, we developed skills,
Hmm.
a lot of skills that, weren't with the typical family skills
So
that,
let's start talking about that, girl, because you definitely, from the time you were like 3, 4, maybe even earlier, you developed skills. Can you give us an example of a time when you developed a skill and that skill saved your butt and saved your life as a little kid?
yeah. So when I was 4 years old, when my father died, I lay in bed before we were sent to Alabama, and angel came outside my window,
Mhm.
and that was my guardian angel, and she taught me how to fly over the trees and in the neighborhood, and she has always been there for me. She's
Uh,
my guardian angel, and she's connected with Mary too, Holy Mary, because they talk to each other, and so I always had that spiritual, whether it's imagination or whatever it is in spiritual connection.
mhm.
I have her. I can close my eyes and see her and
Mm.
remember the joy of her saying, "You're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Come on, let's go fly around the trees." And because what my mom told us when our father died was that there were three little girls in heaven who needed a father, and that's why he died,
Oh,
which that
my.
kind of sucked. I mean, what about us?
Wait, God, what are you doing here, honey?
Right.
Oh, gosh,
Right.
that's
So
right.
so that made me, like Holy Mary a lot better than God
You got it.
and also the angels.
Your guardian angel. I wonder if we do similar things in that when I felt trapped in that house and I was just thinking of you. You had to sleep in the bed where your dad died. I mean, that's
Right.
just really upsetting. And I had to sleep in the crib or the bed where I was abused, and that was scary. So what happened was, and I think, Denice, that it's a way that traumatized children survive. We somehow know inside of ourselves to dissociate.
Right.
And I'm not saying you dissociate with the angel. She was real to you.
I
In
mean,
my case,
disassociate is could be a negative thing as in not
yeah.
being present here, but it's also a positive thing because your imagination and your connection with the unknown,
Mhm. Even
the,
the divine, the safe.
the
I mean,
divine.
yeah, I hear you. You had that guardian angel. And in my case, it was quite similar. When things got really bad and I couldn't stay in that bedroom, I just couldn't bear it. I pictured myself having the ability to float up out through the window, even in the wintertime when it was closed shut, out through the window and float up to heaven. And I'd get to the moon if it were in a sliver moon, and I'd rest on it. And whenever songs came out, like "Would you like to sing on a star?" "Swing on a star."
I
Those are
sing that
made for
song
me.
all the time. That song pops into my head all the time. Would you like to
To
swing
swing
on a
on a
star?
star, carry
Carry
moonbeam,
beams home
home
in a
in a
jar.
jar. You can be better off
Better
than
off.
you are. Hmm.
Or
You got
would you
it.
rather be a? And I never know what to go with from there. That's the amount I sing, and I love that song.
There are all
Uh,
kinds of songs that we're saving like that. Yes.
right. Yeah,
music. So,
I
you
get
know, so
spiked with that. Yeah, song. I do it at work all the time and, just try to lighten the mood or whatever.
yeah. So
Although
what
I'm not at
happened?
work anymore. Now I'm retired.
I was listening when you said at work, but you're in the transitional stage.
I am.
It's
I'm
like,
still realizing it.
yeah, I mean, it will take a while, sweetie, and I'm so glad you're being gentle with yourself. So what
Yeah,
I did was after I got to the moon, then I had this beautiful image that because I believed in those angels up there, I just needed to get to them. So just I was going to go right up through the pearly gates and they would let me in because I was just a little kid. And all the angels would have their lyres and they'd have their harps and they'd have their flutes and they'd have their everything. And we'd sing together. And it was always pastel up there. Was always beautiful pastel, and I would just escape into that. And that
right,
gave me a safe place inside of myself.
right.
And so I think when
And you
kids
can
are not
always
safe,
go back there, you know,
yes,
anytime you can always go back there and it's good.
it's good. And I've working with trauma therapists. I don't know if you've worked on this, but I'm very grateful that I had those dreams and images and those beliefs because I mean, when Jesus didn't come to save me and I was so taught that he would, I thought, well, I'm just going straight to heaven and that's it.
Right,
Straight to heaven. And it helped. It helped. And there's a lot of time I do not remember because I was up in heaven. And
right.
that's the way my little girl thought about it. So, sweetie, here we both were, and you were learning that you couldn't really be a kid at home.
Right.
And
Right. I
so,
was adultified also. My mom was not the nurturing type. And I had
right,
two younger sisters very quickly. We were the three girls.
right.
And so I took care of them. I was parentified or adultified, or I got the bottles, I got the diapers. I stayed up late with my mom to do laundry and,
And how did you feel? I mean, here's what I believe that there are some good feelings associated with that, as well as some I'm exhausted. I'm a little kid. Why am I doing this? Did you take anything away from that helped you as an adult?
yeah, it's housekeeping is a good thing to know.
It's true.
And yeah. And so helping her with those chores developed my own skills, which I am very grateful for.
True. That whole generation of us was like we had chores to do,
Right.
and as little kids we were supposed to do them. I learned to iron at a really young age, and I never burned anything. And
I loved ironing.
yeah, it was something that could be accomplished, and it kind of smelled good as it was getting clean
Yeah, and
cloth.
you could really see it get better.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I loved
So
ironing.
also, look what you were saying, Denise, is you were the adultified kid because you were the elder of the three girls, and you took care of your little sisters. And what did you learn from that?
Um, well, my one sister was mentally ill and started, holding her breath and passing out and whatnot. I mean, I tried to get away and go play with my friends as much as possible. I mean, like I wanted to be a kid
Mhm.
and played outside a lot, but I don't know. I It ended up as we were older, them against me, kind of like I would pick on them and they would have to stick together so that I didn't hurt them too much or bug them or whatever.
What I've been reading about, Denise, and you probably noticed this, is in dysfunctional families, it's rare that the children are supportive to each other. It's more every girl for herself,
Right,
and every child just has to survive, and there's not enough love to go around. So if I'm lucky to get a little bit of love for getting an A grade on a tough exam, then I need to hold on to that. And but I remember wanting my older sisters to look out for me, but I never believed that they could or they would. They was too busy
right,
surviving.
right. Yeah, my one sister, she had mental health issues right away. that could not be ignored. And then my younger sister, just younger, she was a very little quiet mouse in the corner, never made a peep.
Mhm. Three different ways to survive. You stepped
Right.
up and became the parent. The other sister had illness that she didn't have much choice about. She just went
Well,
with
she
that.
just kept trying to express the truth, really, but the truth was not accepted.
Acceptance. Hmm.
So
So as you look back at this experience and you think of, because I want to ask like one more question before we think of how you being a traumatized child broke your heart in many ways. And it also helped you learn strengths and skills that were inside of you, and they came from the inside out. You had them inside of you. You're a little 4 or 5 year old kid and you're doing these things, and you could do it. You could do it.
right.
I want to just ask you so for safety, you had, well, you could, I know it stopped, but you could go down to Alabama in the summer. And what about going to school? Was that safe or semi-safe?
No, I was a horrible student. I was a, non-reader. But I was good socially. I
Oh,
had
okay.
I was really cool with friends, and we did have recess and whatnot that was really good. Uh, I loved walking to school, but
Mhm.
the actual school part, no, it wasn't my cup of tea.
So if you were
And
to look back, sweetie, and say, as you do to many of your own kids when you worked with Head Start, if you were to look back at little Denice and you could see some of her strengths and how might you have helped that little kid? Okay, she wasn't a reader, but that's only one of many skills that a kid has. What were the other strengths that she had that you could have helped her
she
see
was
and
fully
identify?
optimistic. She was so optimistic. She took every day fresh and new.
Mm, that's a gift.
Yeah. And I loved we went to church, every day. And so the mystical, the magical, you know, that dude was turning bread into body and wine into blood. I mean, that mysticism really was interesting to me.
Especially around Easter, all of that dying and being wounded and being betrayed, and he
Right.
doesn't die. I mean, he comes back. That was just fascinating to a kid.
Yeah. And the church that I went to was Holy Rose, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary Cathedral, a huge cathedral, um, enormous art all over and statues, and Holy
Yeah,
Mary was there. You could go light candles and put in a nickel, and oh yeah, there was a lot of ceremony and ritual that was there that was pretty awesome. I really loved that and
I hear
flourished.
you. Uh-huh. I have benefited from that too. Even one of the things I loved the most was singing in the choir
I did.
because yeah, and what did that do for you when you sang in the choir?
Oh, it's magical. And we had a choir loft. And so Mr. Murphy, he was the organist for many, many years, and he would teach us we were angels coming out of our voices were like angelic voices dropping down to the people. And so both I got to do that, be a part of that, and I got to witness it when I wasn't in the choir. Different years you could be in the
Mhm.
choir and other years you weren't. So you also got to hear the voices of the angel children, coming. Oh, it was really awesome.
There's something, and I've been reading about this because I'm going to do a presentation on music, using music with trauma survivors for children who are in trauma and also for adults. And one of the powerful things is being in community in a choir. So,
Right.
and that used to just, I felt that was holy. I would, every Christmas time, I would organize these people to kids to go singing door to door with Christmas
I
carols. And
I
it
would do
was
that too. Yeah.
It was cold, but we didn't care because people would invite
No,
us in and they gave us hot chocolate and they wanted her to sing more. And in the moments when our voices came together in harmony, I felt I was one of those angels in heaven. It was
right.
heaven. It was
Yeah.
heaven.
Yeah, it was a little heaven practice.
And I've never forgotten that. I was just reading about that. We don't forget the times when we made music together. And it's a holy time. It's a safe time. When I was singing, nothing else could get to me. So I sang
And you're
all the
trying
time.
your best to match those next to you. And,
Yes.
you know, it's a cooperation of immense awesomeness. You know,
I hear you.
we're mixing our vibes. We're synchronizing, or I don't know, it's pretty magical.
I think you do, because for me, like I was an alto, and altos don't, they're the lower voiced girls. And so altos don't get the solo parts. We get the harmony parts. And so I came to love the harmony parts because I realized how the sopranos, if they were just singing on their own, it was very sweet, sugary, sometimes it's very beautiful, but without the depth of the altos. And then there were boys who were like tenors and bass. And back in the day, we didn't have girls that could do that, but I'm sure they were there. But there was something about being part of something, contributing. Each one of us contributed what we could, and I was not the star, but I
Right,
was a good choir member. And boy, did that make a difference because my family was not a family. It wasn't a place where there was assurance and love. And so
right.
I found those assurance and love things with my Girl Scout buddies, with my Brownie Scout buddies, in the neighborhood playing with kids like my age, and also singing. And then also another thing I did was I really organized what we called bike hikes. I used to go biking everywhere. And that
Me
would,
too.
yeah, and we go a long way, honey, right?
We were the last generation that could ride our bikes all over the city,
Yes.
really,
Yeah. It was
because
amazing.
it became right after that, it became stranger danger, started becoming more aware, which it was less, I was safer on the streets than I was in my house. I really
Yes.
felt that.
And
And
I believe you. I believe you.
yeah,
I mean, in my hometown, I used to know everybody. I mean, I felt I did. If I walked down the street and I didn't know anybody, I'd say, "Good morning, how are you?" Everybody I walked by, "Hello, how you doing?" And it just felt sweet. Most people responded like, "Well, hello, good to see you." And it was on neighborly to go down Market Street and not say hello to people.
right.
So I still do that. Whatever
You're
country I'm in, I
spreading,
like to say
spreading
hello.
fondness. You know, fondness is something that we need to have for each other. That's how we make things better for each other. You know, if we can build on that fondness, that's
What
my
is
new
what
spiritual
is
goal.
fondness to you, girl? I want to hear about fondness, and we can start transitioning because I want to hear how all of this experience, which could have taken you down, could have ruined you. You have taken your broken heart and you've turned it into being an artistic person with your own life. And so
Right.
tell me, talk about fondness, because I know there's something new that you want to share today.
Yeah, fondness is to me, I'm turning it into a spiritual practice.
Okay.
So to be fond of someone is to be present with them, right? And see what's beautiful, and you know, notice the purple in your hair is really cool today.
Yeah.
And that's fondness. And so that's my new spiritual practice, is to be fondness.
Hmm. I
And
love,
so yeah, so I studied Reiki and astrology, tarot cards. I've done a lot of this spiritual opening, you know, it's the voice for my spiritual self.
yes.
And but it's always been second because my job, my work was so very important, you know, with children. And that was my political work. That was my spiritual work. I put all my energies into my Head Start classrooms.
And it was
And
really spiritual for you, Denise, because
it
you brought
was,
love, you brought fondness. No, I understand that, but you brought love and acceptance. You brought unconditional love and acceptance to every child, which is why, and I keep saying this, that the tough kids that other people couldn't deal with, send them to Denise.
right. I did. They did. But I loved it. But then got, I felt like I was too old. I was tired. I was going home crooked and twisted, and it was too much.
Yes.
And so I took a coach job, and for a year I hated it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it at all. It just wasn't my political work. It wasn't my spiritual work. It wasn't my thing. And so, uh, because the universe listens to me and attends to me and, wants the best for me, I ended up being able to resign. And so now I am going to pursue the spiritual part, which is, that's the part it wasn't neglected. I do ceremony on full moon and new moons. I do smudging people's houses. I do card readings that are very helpful to people.
You have always done rituals. I mean, when you got to be old enough, you chose to go through the ritual of becoming a
Yeah.
wise elder woman,
I
crone.
wanted to be an altar boy my whole Catholic childhood. It was after us when girls got to be altar
Right.
boys. Well, servers, they call them now. But I wanted to be an altar boy so bad. So then when I became a witch, which is a year and a day practicing the holidays, which is the seasons and the mid seasons, you spend a year and a day doing that, and then you're a witch. And I then was my own altar girl because I have my own altar. So I light the candles and burn the incense and all the things that I longed for to have as a part of my spiritual growth, what the boys got, but I didn't get. So I made
And
it
you
for
know what?
myself.
You did it for yourself and you had that plan. And the other thing here is just in case someone's listening that doesn't understand about this witches, can you say what being a wise elder woman means to you? Because it's not like you're gonna put spells on people.
No, it's crone. We call it crone. There's a ceremony when there's the daughter, the mother, the crone. These are the three aspects of the goddess. We all have all of it. Even when we're a child, the mother was that guardian angel that came to me, the good
Mhm.
mother. You know what I mean? I have that. I am she.
Mhm.
And then, so then in the female spirituality movement, um, we have croning ceremonies. So, when you're 60, 65, whatever, when you decide you want to be a crone, you want to make that transition, then you do a ceremony, which I did with my friend on the land at Mishfest,
Oh,
which is
yes.
sacred women land. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I
And
became
I've
the
known,
crone then.
yeah, and I've known people that have done it. I've been to croning ceremonies like by the ocean, and it's
Right,
all women in a circle, and it's all blessing, and it's essentially taking back what we were not allowed to have. We weren't allowed to have spiritual connections, direct connections with the divine.
right. We
Really
had to go
clear
through the
we
father.
That's right. That's right. And so this is saying, wait, I've got a relationship.
Right. We
I
didn't have a good father. Some people did have a good father. I I'm glad for them. But I
yes.
did, I did not have a good father. And I had two opportunities for a good father. My mom, was married to two. Neither one of them worked out for me. So uh I took the mother, and the mother's more significant to me and is what I needed from my divine self, you know?
I hear you. And you were able as a child to recognize what you were being given and to find the holy in that, which is really wonderful. What I want to do is ask you this. So thank you for sharing with us some of the things that you went through as a kid. Now you're going through another change. And the other change is after 3 decades, maybe more or less, of working, of being a wonderful Head Start teacher. And
Dependable, continuous improvement, uh,
Mhm,
best practices,
mhm.
conscious discipline. When that came, I, developed myself as trauma informed. So the whole time was solid, good.
You
And
kept
then,
learning, you kept growing, and you
right,
kept becoming more you. And
right,
then things happen, like you went home like, ouch, because after a
friction.
while it's hard to get up and off the floor. I can't do
It
that.
is.
Yeah.
There are physical limitations. Like I am shocked every day. Right now, I've been going with this plantar fasciitis and
Ouch.
Achilles. Kill. Oh, it's it's shocking what happens, but
It hurts.
uh,
It hurts. And yet
I'm
it's an,
trying to adapt and do more
yeah.
things that are. I have more time now to do self-care and spiritual development.
And so you could, here's what I want the listeners to know is that Denice, you could have been knocked off your butt 800,000 times when you found out, number one, I can't do what I've loved and that I'm so good at, which is being in the classroom with kids. Then you turned into a coach and you tried it. You gave it your best and you made
I
friends.
did. The people liked me. They said I helped them. They're,
Mhm,
all of them have reached out to me since my separation and said, "Oh, we wish you well." Uh, I wasn't horrible at it, but I
mhm.
didn't love it. I just didn't love it. And I got physical ramifications from it, sitting in a chair or driving 52 miles in the car, sitting. My knees started to act up, then my ankles, now my feet. I mean, I'm still working with it. And that's why I'm going to join this woman named Billy. She just put out, uh, recently, I went in my files downstairs to get those letters. Remember, I told you that I learned how to have feelings or learned that I was actually a feeling
Yes.
person with the
Mhm.
Thesaurus Project? Well, when I went down
Yes.
there and got that, I also found my
Oh, what
ribs.
does that mean, sweetie?
This
What's that
is a
mean across the
Reiki.
top?
It's Japanese. It's Reiki. I got
Oh,
Reiki certification, which is a form of healing.
yes, it is. Yes.
I took this out like, I don't know, a month ago or something. And then just 2 days ago or 3 days ago, this woman who is her profession is a spiritual advisor,
Mhm.
healer thing. So she put out this, let's, um, I know there's somebody out there who needs master teacher training in Reiki. And I'm about ready to coach somebody in it or something like that. She put out a
Mm.
ad. And so I responded to it. So I'm going to devote time and money to develop
Good.
my Reiki a little better, which is sending vibes. So
Mhm.
I'm going to start by sending my fondness out there.
Mm. And yeah, if you don't know about Reiki, I think Denise is describing it really well. It's a practice of reading and
It's a
transmitting.
practice of healing energy. It's an old Japanese um, art from millions of years ago. You use symbols to connect with the universe and those angels that are up there praying for us right now. And we bring those prayers down and focus them to a person. There's different types. You can heal physical issues, you can heal emotional issues, and you can heal karmic issues. And then there's also another symbol for sending remotely. Like the one way to do it is to be right on a person and next to them and, do the energy work. or you can send it remotely with intention and symbols. And so that's what I do mostly, but I'm going to beef it up, fine tune it, get a coach.
I love it. And so now here's what I want to invite Denice to tell us about, because going through all these changes, each time Denice had a choice of feeling defeated, feeling resentful, feeling such great loss that it would remind her of all the losses from childhood. Or Denice, what I noticed you doing every time, Denice, is you stepped up and you said, okay, it's almost as if you were saying, how can I be true to myself and my purpose on earth as I go through these changes? Can you walk us through how you're doing that? Because that might be inspiring to people that are thinking, I lost everything. And in some ways, you did lose a lot, but you also are getting a lot.
I am. And again, Head Start program taught me. My first Head Start program was in Phoenix, well, Mesa, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And, they do this twice a year, pre-service training, mid-service training. And the first mid-service training that, no, the first pre-service training that I went to, I signed up for a class about continuous improvement. And I've been on that bus ride ever since. You can choose to stop, or you can find where something needs to get better and improve it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that was the teaching. They gave a lot of really cool demonstrations with trains and uh anyway, they helped you understand it more than just talking. You could feel that, oh yeah, continuous improvement is definitely a good thing to try.
Yeah. Well,
And
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
I took it and I apply it again and again and again and again, and it's always been good.
Which in a way always gives you hope. It connects with what you said about being an optimistic, hopeful kid. You must have believed that things could always, no matter how dark things were, that there was light. There was always light.
One of my mantras, besides, would you like to swing on a
On a
star?
star, carry things home in a jar.
Also is my other one is older is better. Older
Mm,
is better. I was always telling myself, once you get older, it's going to be better. It
okay.
was a mantra that I got from wherever, and I always believed that. And
That's
now here I
really
am
great.
getting older.
And is it better?
It is better.
Tell us about that, sweetie. Tell us about the choices you're making now to start your life all over again, including saying goodbye to an organization that you dearly loved. And that was a week ago, Wednesday.
Yep.
Oh my
You
gosh.
And I did one sad
Sad
part that
part.
I do have a little sad part is that I
Mhm.
didn't celebrate my good work with my coworkers. They didn't
Mhm.
get to celebrate with me, that was a great 9.5 years. You did it. Nobody really got to do that for me, and
Mhm.
I miss that. But when I posted on Facebook that I retired, I just put retired, life change. 250 people wished me well.
Oh,
Uh,
I love
oh,
it.
and so that made up for the fact that I couldn't really celebrate in my organization that I love dearly,
Mhm.
but I could celebrate in my world.
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry because those closure celebrations, I think there's a better word for it, but those celebrations of changes and endings and beginnings are so crucial.
they are.
And
They're important. And
really,
I have reached out to, the people who were most significant to my growth and development there at Great Lakes, and thanked them, and let them know that they're always my school family and I will always love them. So I reached out to them because, we couldn't have a party.
And the year before, when you said goodbye to your kids, you said goodbye. You didn't just walk out. You said,
Right. I gave them time. And actually, even I went back again this year, last year with butterflies and gave them a presentation of the butterflies. And um, they have a Facebook page. So I always like their pictures and make comments. So, because they still have some of the same kids this year. Some of the kids we keep 3 years when they come right at
mhm,
3. So,
mhm.
yeah, there's still some of my kids are there.
So here's what I know of you. You knew in your soul that story time was your mission, that that's where you're really happy and that's where you're being true to yourself. And then today, when we connected by texting, you said there's also something new. And I'm
Right.
wondering if that's the fondness, or can you tell us more
Yes.
about
Right.
how choosing to continuously improve
Right.
has brought you another option? Tell us about that.
Right. So I've always practiced these spiritual practices. And so I want to level up and to really feel more connected spiritually with my guardian angel, open more vibrant communications and to send Reiki to to our
Mhm.
earth, to our world. And so I'm gonna get with a mentor.
And
Yeah.
when do you start that, sweetie?
She hasn't emailed me back. I just emailed her on the weekend, which I'm sure she has weekends off. So she's probably looking at her email today or tomorrow.
So have you seen her? Do you know her?
Yes, I worked with her before.
Good.
Little
Okay.
spiritual retreats. Yeah,
So it's fascinating, isn't it? It's the old saying is that when the student is ready, the teacher
right. And that's what happened. She
appears.
appeared with her post on Facebook saying, "Hey, somebody needs a coach out there," something like that. And I was like, that sounds like me right
And you
away.
would never have been free before to do that.
Right, right. I would
So
have had to keep my energy to work.
do you see this informing or somehow um, giving energies to the story time that you do with children?
Yeah, because well, I already do send fondness to each child. I try to connect with each child. I try to observe, you can do it, what they're doing. I observe what they're doing and say it so their parents can feel proud too. So I just want to expand on that.
And I'm
And now
sure you're
doing it at a daycare, and these are young teachers at a daycare. I prefer calling it childcare, but in this town, everybody calls it daycare. And which I'm going to start influencing that too. I'm going to start calling it childcare. But my first one is over at Little Tykes. These are young women who are, getting it at the beginning of their childcare career, and I'm going to teach them
they're going to learn from the best.
and encourage them and notice what they're doing. Oh, look, you're having conversation with that child right now.
Mm.
Count if you can do six or whatever, six exchanges. I'm going to
Wow.
teach them how to document developmental goals. Oh, that's
That's
going to be
also
so.
really good, right? Because many people like me would have said, oh, it's boring, but it's not boring when it means each child is growing and you can see the child growing and it's
In
beautiful.
this way,
Well,
in this way, in this way, in this way.
yeah.
There's so many ways.
And that's back to what you often say about yourself that you were not in the one third of the best students, but I always think of you as being in the top of all the students as a child who had your own skills. It's just that our teaching system, our learning system, education system wasn't ready to
No, it
see
didn't meet
those.
me where I was. Special ed wasn't even I mean, it might have been somewhere thought of by PhDs, but it wasn't yet. My siblings were in special ed.
Ah, because they were that much younger, just a little
behind
bit.
me. Right. Yep. They were in special ed, but they didn't have special ed for me. But I could whistle with the Cardinals and caw with the Blue Jays on the way to school. I knew all the secret spots in the alleyway where you could hide and whatever.
There's a lot of giftedness in that. It's a
I had a
lot.
lot of smarts that were differently smart.
Hmm. And doesn't everybody?
We do, and that's the thing. That's, why I became a teacher, because I really want to value each type. Our school systems value this one type, and I want to value and spread the love for everyone to value these other parts, these other 2 or 3 learning styles.
And so when you continue your learning with Reiki, what else do you have? Is it just like an open promise that you're just going to keep walking toward, or do you have other goals and tasks in mind about how you want to use
I
this
just want to
additional
spend
gift?
my time on story time. And so that was my first thing. I want to be doing story time. Now I have some extra time because I'm not going 40 hours to somebody else's place. I'm
Mhm.
staying in my place. So then this other part is going to be spiritual inclined,
Mm.
effort to
And,
develop spiritually.
and it's so beautiful that that's something you've always wanted,
Yeah,
even as a little kid.
I did. I wanted to be ringing the bells at the altar, saying, listen, this is important right here. You evils
Yes.
are hearing, God is hearing.
Yeah. And when the angel came to your window, you knew that was important.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow. Well, girl, I'm really happy for you. What would
thanks.
you say if I were to ask you this one closing question, or if there's something you want to say in closing, I'd love to hear that. The question I have is how has the difficulty of being a trauma survivor helped you live one of the most fulfilling lives that you ever could have?
Well, because the skills that I got from trauma
Mhm.
and that I'm now developing further are empathy, resilience, continuous improvement, which I named later.
Mhm.
Um, uh, that there is goodness. You always can find goodness. Like Mr. Rogers said, look for the helper. That's one of my idols, Mr. Rogers. And yeah, there's goodness. And Holy Mary, be kind to the children. Be kind to the children. That's my mantra. They need kindness. Children need kindness. That's what Holy Mary taught. That's what I got out of her anyway.
Really, kindness and fondness and acceptance and not being judged. And I also loved when Fred Rogers said, um, to be able to learn, we have to feel that we're loved. We have to learn that we're loved.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So projecting fondness is putting out a hand, like that Harriet Tubman,
Oh, I,
wa-
I love that. Hmm.
yeah, with the hand out. It's putting out a hand, but it's putting it out of my heart, not out here. So that's where the spiritual comes in, because Reiki teaches you to work with these energies. Now, to send actual Reiki to a human being, you need their permission. You have to say, may I send Reiki? I'm not going to ask all the kids at story time, may I send you Reiki? They're going to say, what's that? Or anyway, it's not reasonable. But what I am going to do is project fondness energy.
And that's acceptable because
Right. I
you're
don't
just
need permission for that.
you're just loving on them. And that's
Yep.
what children always need. My
Yep.
friend, thank you so much for being with us. And I hope you can come back. Fare thee well, folk.